And we'll start seated tonight. So a nice, comfy, grounded seat. Props needed, even though I have a prop or two residually hanging out. And we'll just feel into a breath that nurtures the being, the body tonight. We'll give ourselves about 60 more seconds here just to center in. About 30 more seconds here. Just feeling into the breath. And let's exhale, chin tucks to the sternum. As the chin tucks, just make sure the rest of the sternum is staying neutral, or I guess the entirety of the sternum is staying neutral. And then inhale, head back to a full neutrality. Exhale, let's turn over towards the left. And inhale, back to neutrality. And then exhale over towards the right. And inhale to neutral. Exhale, chin lifts. Take a full inhale here and feel the throat expand. And then we're going to exhale, chin's going to drop all the way to the sternum. Make sure you stay with that torso neutrality. Inhale will lift the chin all the way towards the ceiling. Exhale, chin comes to the sternum. Let's do that 2 more times. We'll inhale and lift. Get that full space. Exhale and tuck. Inhale and lift. Exhale and tuck. And then we'll bring our chin back to neutral. Exhale, chin's going to go towards the right. Inhale all the way over to the left. Exhale to the right. And inhale to the left. And just relax back to neutral. Exhale to the left. And inhale all the way to the right. Exhale all the way to the left. And inhale all the way to the right. And just relax back to neutral. Take both hands, interlace the fingers. Palms can be away from you or towards you, whatever feels most comfortable. And just extending straight out shoulder height. And then we'll inhale and extend straight up and overhead. Trying to get the arms to tuck kind of slightly behind you here without too much loss of our neutrality. And we'll relax to tabletop. So a transition of the torso direction. Let's sink right back into child's pose. So flip the tops of the feet, sink all the way back, settle all the way back here. And try to get the release and the relaxation around the shoulders. Just thinking about how the child's pose shape can be supportive for the shoulders. And obviously shoulders are interconnected with the entirety of the body, but also that neck trap space that we've already started mobilizing. Give ourselves just 10 more seconds here just to feel the shoulders being supported. And when you feel right, fingertips grip into the mat, and we'll pull and return to tabletop. This time curling our toes, lifting our seat, and extending back into the depth of our down dog, driving the energy towards the front of the hand. So into that finger mound, into that fingertip space, so that you can create more of an angle towards the hips. And then just walk forward to eventually find our way to fold. Inhaling to half lift. Half lift, big long extension here. Think about really feeling the musculature necessary to create this half lift shape. And then exhale all the way back into that fold. And as you settle into the fold, feel the musculature kind of along the spinal column just relax out. All of that musculature that we had so much request of in the half lift, just relaxing out. And then let's drift our awareness to our sacrum, and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae, stacking the spinal column all the way to this mountain pose. In mountain, hands come together at heart center. Find some width across the shoulders. So just making sure that we're not kind of rounding into that, really staying active across the shoulders. And then keeping the hands at heart center, let's just delicately slide the left foot back and find our way into a modified version of crescent. Splay the toes out on both feet. Find that weight distribution and allow it to be nice and relatively equal. And then the hands are going to push up, and we're going to use the energy of the arm lift to step and return to the front of our mat, where we'll exhale through forward fold. And as you settle into that fold, allow for the back musculature to release. Try to think about the back musculature releasing. And then awareness drifts back to the sacrum. We roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae, finding our way slowly at our own pace, at our own dial, back into the mountain. And from mountain, we think about broadening across the shoulder girdle. From that width and stability of the shape, we'll slide the right foot back into our crescent. And again, just trying to balance the weight distribution, keeping kind of that midline awareness and posterior anterior neutrality kind of always a part of the shape. And then we're using that same really kind of funky thing, arms up, we return to the front of the mat, and then fold. And we settle our way into the fold in a way where we completely land and receive, hands plant. We'll walk back into down dog. Down dog from this transition really is a hard shape to get into. I strongly encourage the knee bend to help get that weight to transfer back to the hips. And you can feel when that weight, there's almost like a speed bump within the shape. Once you get the weight to transfer, the shape transforms. And then we'll come down to hands and knees. And we're gonna return to child's pose. Just gliding our way back. Melting our way back and settling into the support of child's pose. We'll give ourselves 30 more seconds here. Pay attention to the lumbar in this version of this shape. We're really looking to kind of activate that musculature, release into any tension in the low back. And we're going to ask a little bit of that musculature coming out of this shape. When you're right and when you're ready, fingertips gripping into the mat, we'll inhale, pull the weight forward, return to hands and knees. Curl both toes, lift the seat, find our way back into down dog, drive into the depth of the shape, create the length, make sure you get that weight transfer, and then we'll walk forward to fold. Inhale to half lift. And exhale back into fold. As you settle back into the fold, we're really settling into that low back release. Last couple of weeks, we've kind of been anterior focused. Here, we're transitioning back to the posterior awareness. And then slide your hands to your front of your legs. And with an inhale, come up to half lift and let the hands follow. The only place we don't want the hands to be is on the knees themselves. They can be directly below and they can be directly above, just not on the knees. And then make sure your weight is not falling back into your hips, like your hips are trying to escape behind you. Push out into the toe mounds and splay that weight across the toe mound space. Push the top of the head and press into the hands to help create length into this half lift. And then from half lift, we're going to continue inhaling and flat back, returning to mountain, inhaling the hands to heart center. Take the finger interlace, push the palms away from you. And we're taking a half fold where the biceps end up roughly by the ears. And we're driving the energy through the arms. And then relax into the fold. And you want the upper back musculature to release here as you completely let go. So that whole torso, the whole back side of the torso kind of has got some attention here, and that's what we're looking for this cycle through. Let's slide the left leg straight back and into lunge. Ground the left heel and let the left hand take you to warrior two. And really settle into the width here. I'm playing a little bit with that energy down the medial line of the left leg and the lateral edge of the right leg. And then left heel spins up. We return to a traditional crescent, or we're into a traditional crescent for the first time. Hands are gonna drop to heart center. We'll use that energy to help return to the front of the mat. Inhale, sweep the arms. Exhale to fold. Settle all the way into this fold. Let the calf tissue go. Let the high back, let the low back, let the hamstrings go. Right leg slides straight back and behind us. Right heel grounds, right hand takes us to two. Think about that medial line on the right leg, lateral edge of the left leg getting wide. Settling into the strength of the shape, and then the right heel spins up. We are in a traditional version of crescent. Think about the depth of the shape. Hands drop as we return. And interlace the fingers, push the arms straight out from the shoulders once again. Take that half fold. And relax all the way, allowing that upper back tissue to release once again. Plant the hands, we'll walk to plank. Plank, we have that shoulder area kind of fatigued here. So really use the core, really use the glutes, slowly lower yourself to your belly. Flip the tops of the feet. Keep the hands right where they are, but splay the fingers out as big as you can get them. So just really pushing those hands to their maximum width. And then press the elbows down, and torso is not up here. I'm just doing that so we can talk, but push the elbows down into the mat next to you. So you have the hands kind of right under the shoulders and the elbows are actively pressing down. Make sure you have that quad flex turned on and then squeeze the shoulder blades up. So as the elbows are pressing down, shoulder blades are squeezing up. There's kind of there's an interesting thing where the work that is lifting the shoulder blades is actually on the bottom side, so towards your glutes, right kind of next to where the elbows are. So there's a ton of energy right across that thoracic joint. And then relax completely and really try to feel that mid-back tissue relax as you slide your hands underneath your forehead for crocodile pose. So we really tried to bunch up the entirety of the energy right across that mid-band of the back. And now try to balance that out, I guess, in a way by creating as much relaxation or releasation, let's say, right across that band of energy that we just had. And we'll just breathe here. And we'll spend about 40 seconds total here, just allowing for this band of musculature to deactivate. So there was this man of beyond generational wealth, William Randolph Hearst type wealth. And he had the most immaculate library that existed since maybe the lost libraries of Alexandria. When you're ready, hands slide back underneath the shoulders. We'll bring some strength into the musculature just above the knees. Press 2 hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, curl your toes, roll back into down dog. Push and extend, really think about creating 2 points of energy, the handprint and the tailbone, and maximize that distance and see if you can feel that mid strap of back musculature kind of on the bottom shelf of the scapula, crossing over between the lumbar and the thoracic, expanding into the shape. And then we'll walk forward to fold. And from fold, let's sweep ourselves all the way up and overhead. Inhale, hands come to heart center. And from heart center, press the hands together a little bit extra. So there's a little bit of energy at the hands, and slide your left leg straight back to lunge. And note the amount of engagement in the right hip. And step right forward to the front of the mat. And then slide the hands to the hips. Take a half fold. Keep the weight distribution in the legs so that you're not pushing back. We're staying right in that straight line, and really think about a neutral back. I'm just going to pull my arm out of the way so you can see that neutrality in the back. And from this, bring your hands to heart center. Feel that middle back space. Left leg's going to return to this lunge. And now you feel how much difference the right leg is activated. There's a huge amount of lateral edge hip capacity here. Bring the torso up to neutral and stay with that hip as you sink into the shape, bringing the tibia and fibia to like a purely vertical, and feel how deep we are in this shape. Left hand rolls us to 2, left heel grounds. And now we're in a super deep version of 2. And the medial line on the front side, on the front leg, the right leg, is trying to pull in, or the lateral edge is trying to roll out. Think about bringing neutrality to that front femur. And then back heel spins up. Both hands return to crescent. Huge hip adjustment there. Hands drop to heart center as we return to the front of the mat. And we'll settle here for a moment. And then when you feel ready, the right foot's just going to slide back. And it's just a little touch, right? This is just the opportunity to feel full approximation of the shape. How does the hip receive the shape? Sweep the arms. And then we drop the hands as we return to the front of the mat. Hands to the hips. Take your half fold. Extend it out. Feel that mid back strap that we activated. Bring the hands to heart center. Slide the right foot back. As you do so, this left hip flexor takes the burden of the shape. Drive energetically into that space. And then we tilt the torso. Sweep the arms. Ground the right heel and roll open to this huge wide version. Again, there's either a medial pull or there's an external rotation of the femur, or at least likely a desire. Really try to find neutral with the femur and then push all the way to vertical with the tibia and fibia. Right heel spins up, both hands reach up. Drop the hands, we return to the front of the mat, that little hip wobble on the way. Sweep the arms, exhale through fold. Inhale to half lift. Feel that back strap once again. Exhale, and as you release into this fold, bend the knees probably like 3 to 5%. It's just enough to take the edge off of the posterior chain so that you can feel the back receive the depth here. And really think about the structure, the scaffolding of the back, the spinal column itself being pulled into length. Plant the hands, walk back to down dog. Remember to get that pressure over the speed bump and into the length. There's such a desire to be stuck here. Where we really want to get to is here. And then come down to hands and knees. Flip and sink to child's pose. And we just breathe into child's pose. And for the last couple weeks, as we've worked the freeing of this anterior chain in all of our folds, we get into child's pose and we feel the gravitational force load compressing at that hip crease. And we have the same opportunity here. This time we've really taken that work out to the lateral edge of the hip. That last little sequence is a deep hip flexor attack. As you compress here, and we have less of that like pushback. Think about how the pushback has been reduced from the hip flexor and how you can just give more easily, more readily to that gravitational push on top of you. And we're going to spend 30 more seconds here. And then when you're ready, hands reach out in front of you. If they're not already there, fingertips grip into the mat. We'll pull forward to tabletop. From tabletop, curl the toes, lift the seat, roll the weight back or drive the weight back. Create that sensation of pressure and extension along the neutral angle, or continuous angle is a better way to put that, of your spinal column. And let's walk ourselves forward and into fold. And half lift. Half lift here. Think about that neutrality. You can use the hands, or you can let the hands hang, or whatever feels appropriate. The hands can just kind of gently grace the front of your body, but we want the back to activate and then relax back into that. The opposite, the boomerang side of the activation, as you release into the depth. Awareness drifts to the sacrum. We'll inhale and sweep ourselves up. Hands come together at heart center. Let's take a little opportunity to balance here. We'll do this left side first. So right leg roots down, left knee comes up, half Karate Kid. Think about how you set the middle of the body and then how you keep the weight in the middle of the shape. So we're not leaning forward, we're not rounding back, but we're really nice and tall. Left leg slides back. And then sink into the space you've created for your hips, which is probably a significant amount. And then this is not a required full grounding, but we're going to work the left heel down. If it fully grounds, rad. If it doesn't fully ground, don't compromise the torso positioning. So this could be like a halfway in to a warrior one, or it could be the full grounding of warrior one. But the ilium stay pointed straight forward, shoulder corners stay pointed straight forward, and then spin back up. And let's drop the hands. And we're going to step forward into half fold. So it's a big pull from the right toe mound, and we extend out and feel how that lower posterior chain receives that. And then exhale and settle in. And as you settle in, let that high calf insertion really release into the space. The lower half of the shape captures that restriction as you step forward, and we're just releasing that, boomeranging that into the leg. Awareness drifts to the sacrum. We'll sweep ourselves up. Exhale the hands to heart center. And we head over to side two. Right knee comes up. Once again, we want to stay right in the middle of the shape. We want to keep the weight right down the traditional midline. And then we slide back. And it's a deep lunge. And then we sink into the hip space we've created, transcending the normalcy of our shape. Hands can stay at heart center, and we just start to ground that right heel. Maybe it comes halfway, maybe it comes all the way down, but we don't compromise the straightforwardness of our torso. Back heel spins up, hands drop, and we return to that half lift, finding your way into the half lift and noticing again how the lower half of the body receives the burden with this approach. Then exhale and settle, and the settle then manifests down through the lower half of the body, through the hamstrings, through the calves, into that length. Drift your awareness back to your sacrum, and let's sweep ourselves back up to mountain. Hands come together at heart center. And this time, eyes closed. Center of the body, center of the hips, center of the shoulders, medial line of the body, all squared up to the front of your mat. Weight distribution balanced across the toe mounds and between the heels and toe mounds. Note if the glutes have wanted to deactivate. And if they have, there's a tendency, because we gave that calf work, for all the musculature to just want to bunch up at the calves and for the hamstrings and glutes to just kind of be off right now. Really think about finding some activation in the upper half of the legs. Sweep the arms. Exhale through a full fold. Inhale to half lift. Exhale. And walk back to plank. Finding our way all the way back into plank and then recreating that stability we just had in mountain. Feeling the glutes, feeling the core, noticing the calves, slowly lower yourself down to your belly. Hands stay right where they are. They spread out nice and wide. And this time we're going to elevate the elbows. So quads are flexed, elbows lift up. And as the elbows lift up, squeeze those shoulder blades up. You'll note the positioning of energy is now higher. It's almost where the elbows are, right? It's right across the scapula, through that whole subscapular band. And we're going to hold this for 10 more seconds. Think about the energy right across that lower half of the shoulder girdle, upper half of the back. And relax. Slide your hands underneath your forehead for a little crocodile pose. Until this man with his great wealth, he is blessed, is granted an awful lot of time. And with that time, he has decided to pursue enlightenment. And so he starts reading the works of Dale Carnegie, Eckhart Tolle. And he goes through these volumes and volumes of works where these authors have shared their encapsulation of self-betterment, enlightenment, and this path to the thing everyone is looking for. Last 20 seconds here. And he goes through the entirety of these authors' works, and he goes through author after author after author. When you're ready, hands slide back underneath your shoulders. We'll bring some strength into the musculature just above the knees, and we'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, let's curl the toes, lift the seat, roll back into down dog. This is very likely to be the last opportunity that you get in down dog tonight. So really think about creating that length. Think about the activity and awareness you have across the shoulder girdle now. And try to drive energetically from your hands to stabilize that shoulder tissue as you press and extend back into the shape. And then we will walk our way to the front of the mat. And from the front of the mat, inhale to half lift. And as you're with your perspective of half lift, look down at your feet and make sure that they are kind of evenly met as you heel toe them to the center of your mat. So ideally, if you imagine a line running right down the center of your mat, your big toes meet at that line, and then release into fold. And as you release into fold, you'll likely notice that the changing of the placement of the width of the feet will give you a different sensation across the back. and you feel that medial line just a little bit more. Awareness just to the sacrum, will roll or sweep ourselves up depending on how stable you feel with the feet together. And let's bring our hands together at heart center. And I'm gonna roll here. So we'll take our left foot. Remember, this is middle of the mat. Left foot is going to tuck and wrap behind the right. So it's just a sweep and then come relatively towards the front of the mat still, right? There's not a perfect alignment there. See if I can give a better view there. Yeah. So you can see that there's that offset, right? And that's just the calf offset. Keeping the hands at heart center, take yourself to half fold. And splay those toes out nice and wide. And then release all the way into the fold. And from your fold, let your left foot unwind and come back to its side of the mat. And then we'll roll or sweep up. Again, the big toes are kind of touching at midline. Hands return to heart center. Right foot tucks behind the left. And so we end up with this little offset, but also a lot of squeeze in the hips to create that stability. And then half fold, feeling the back, full fold, releasing into the depth. And then as you feel balanced, undoing that right foot and letting it return to its side of the mat, keeping that topness between, or that tightness between the big toes, settle all the way into your fold. Try to let your chin and your forehead soften towards your shins, ankles, feet, wherever you are, wherever that geometry of your torso works too. And then drift your awareness to your sacrum, and we'll roll or sweep up one last time. And hands at heart center, feet staying with this closeness. Let's really give ourselves the opportunity to test the hips here. So if the proximity of the feet feels like it's too much and it just makes you too unstable, go back out to a more traditional width, obviously. But if you feel like this is a ready challenge, we're gonna start to sink towards Malasana, all the way into the depth of this shape, and then to our seat. And from seat, legs extend, and we follow those to a fold. And we'll give our body a little bit of an opportunity to receive in this fold tonight. So that's gonna look like about 90 seconds. Pretty good long hold here. But we've really warmed up the posterior chain. And we should have a ton of room for this fold. So at a certain point, this man hires a yogi to come on staff, and he's not there to teach this man yoga. He's there to recommend authors that he should connect with, that he should read the works of. And then he's gotten into the habit of finding authors who are still living, reading the entirety of their work, and then flying them in, private jetting them in, so they can come sit in his library and he can do one-on-one discussions with them about the teachings that they've shared in these books. And he's gone through maybe 100 authors in this year, as this yogi just keeps recommending these respected and well-known thinkers on enlightenment. When you're right, when you're ready, we've made it through our 90 seconds. So let our spine get vertical first, and then work our way on to our back. And as you settle here, what I really want you to experience is how different this particular settling is tonight. You know, we did all of the things that we normally do. We did the warm up, the posterior chain activation, the anterior chain activation. We did the fold into flexion right before the release into this neutral extension. And yet, as you land here, can you feel this different level of neutrality? Can you feel this different level of greeting from the mat into the openness you've created so far tonight? We'll give ourselves about 50 more seconds just to feel into this. Maybe you return to that breath cycle that you started class with, or maybe it's something completely new that is less intrusive of your observation. As you go right, when you feel ready, we're going to bring the knees into a bent shape, kneecaps point towards the ceiling or sky. And let's take our hands to interlace behind the head. So elbows point towards the edges of the room. And likely, I don't know if hopefully is the right word. I think likely is probably the right word. That likely you're feeling some of that activity across the shoulder girdle that we worked so hard on. So from this activation, push down into your elbows, and we're going to lift into a bridge of your choice. 1 inch, 6 inches, 12 inches, whatever feels right. I always recommend bridges that maintain their neutrality, but if you want to go into extension, you are certainly welcome to. And then we'll release the tailbone down. And release your arms to cactus. Push into the back of the hands and the elbows. And see if you can get that activation on the back side of the body. So torso activation, posterior torso activation. And then we lift ourselves in a bridge. And we slowly release down. Hands come by our sides, palms up. Pressing into the backs of the hands, the elbows, and the shoulders. And as the shoulders activate, there's this anterior activation. Keep enough belly engagement to mirror that pec minor activation that you get. And then we lift ourselves into this final version of bridge. And likely that sensation has traveled a little bit lower. And we're kind of at that thoracic shelf. And relax. Arms come back to cactus or T, whatever feels nice, and let the legs start to rock side to side. And so almost every week, this yogi is bringing in one of his counterparties, one of his friends, to connect with this wealthy man and discuss enlightenment. No matter what this man seems to glean from these books and from these vast works, he always feels like there's something missing. And no matter what questions he asks in these one-on-one exchanges, he never feels like he can find that little missing sliver. And next time the knees fall over to the left, let's allow them to stay there. On one day, the man comes into the library, and this yogi, who's all of a sudden become this wealthy man's librarian, is sitting behind the desk. The man comes over and he says, "Well, what's the book I'm reading this week?" And the yogi says, "You've read them all. We're done." The man says, "Well, what do you like? I haven't understood this enlightenment. I've read all of the books in this amazing library. How is that possible? Go buy me more books." And the yogi's like, "I could buy you more books, but uh, there's nothing out there that's going to solve the thing that you're missing." About 45 more seconds here on this first side. The man says, "Well, what do you like? What do you mean? We've learned the entirety of yoga." He's like, "Well, no, we haven't really learned much of yoga at all. We've done a lot of enlightenment from authors that are kind of related to some yogic practices." And the man, this wealthy man, he's just frustrated. He's not even listening to the conversation anymore. He just says, "Well, then go get me the book that's going to solve this problem." And the yogi's eyes light up and he says, "Oh, okay." Last 10 seconds here. And when your right knees return to neutral, pause for a full cycle of breath and see if you can appreciate the neutrality. And then we release over to that second side. And the next day, the yogi calls this wealthy man into the library and he says, "The book is here." And this wealthy man is just, he's like, "Already it made it here from India?" And the yogi just kind of ignores it. He pulls out his bag, and his bag is this ancient leather satchel. And he opens the flap on this leather satchel, and it's like the leather is just turning into dust as he opens it. And he pulls out this Amazon package and he rips the bubble wrap off. And he hands this man a novel, The Book of Lost Things by John Conley. And it has cellophane on it. And the man looks at this and he's like, what is this garbage? I don't want a novel. Get this out of here. When you're right, when you're ready, knees return back to neutral. Let that awareness of neutrality sink in you. Let your eyes close. Ask yourself if there's anything you want or need before Shavasana. If there is, offer that to yourself. If you feel like you have everything you need, settle completely into a shape where you can appreciate some stillness. And so the yogi sees this disappointment and says, it's a novel. What if you're searching for the essence of life, to find the fulfillment of life? Could there be a better way than the opportunity to experience love, and loss, death, and fear, triumph, and the entirety of a lifetime through your own eyes, with your own feelings, in 8 hours worth of reading? And if you could cram lifetimes and lifetimes of experience into this single opportunity that you have, don't you think there might be something valuable there? We start to move our fingers and our toes, our wrists and our ankles, elbows and knees, shoulders, hips, the entirety of the torso. So the posterior and anterior chain move. And then eventually we allow that movement to work through the entirety of the body. And we'll take that movement and transition from the shapes we are in and return to a seat. In the seated space, spine gets tall, body gets still, breath gets fluid, eyes closed. And just feel into each cycle of breath. So next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself of the opportunity that exists within fiction and see how that impacts your experience? Thank you so much for being a part of this practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Love the heck out of you. Appreciate the heck out of you. I will be back here next Monday and we'll recharge on Sunday if you're interested. Love you. Have a beautiful week. See you soon.